Hey there, friends. Tonight, we're stepping back into a quieter, simpler time, not one of grand battles or mythical heroes, but the small, sturdy world of a child growing up in colonial America, telling you why you wouldn't survive in colonial America. No crowns or castles here, just wooden cabins, endless chores, and a life shaped by the raw edge of a new world. This is a story of muddy boots, smoky hearths, and the slow rhythm of survival in a land that's unforgiving. So, settle in, grab a blanket, dim the lights, and let the soft crackle of an imaginary fireplace carry you back. If you're enjoying this journey, give a quick like and subscribe, and drop a comment to let me know where you're listening from, and what time it is there. I love knowing who is joining us tonight. Now, let's ease into this story, slow and steady, like a cart rolling down a dirt path. Ready? Let's begin. You're born in the dead of winter, 1692, in a small New England village, let's call it Salem. Though it could be any cluster of timber houses hugging the Massachusetts coast, the wind howls outside, rattling the oiled paper. Windows and the air inside the cabin smells of wood smoke, damp wool, and the faint sourness of last night's boiled turnips. Your mother lies on a straw mattress, gripping the edge of a rough-hewn table, her breath sharp and quick. The midwife, a neighbor woman with hands like oak bark, mutters prayers under her breath. Your father paces by the fire, his boots leaving muddy tracks on the packed floor. He's a farmer, maybe a carpenter, with calluses thick as leather, and a face carved by worry. When you arrive, you don't cry, you squall, a sound like a fox caught in a trap. The midwife wraps you in a scrap of linen, still warm from the fire, and your father looks at you, half smiling, half wincing. "This one's got lungs," he says. The room nods, like it's already decided you're going to be a handful. You're a girl, maybe the third or fourth in a family of 6. Or perhaps you're a boy, destined for the fields or the sea. Either way, your life is a coin toss of revived childhood, and you might carve out a living falter, and the wilderness or disease could claim you before you're 10. Your cradle is a wooden box, once used to store apples, lined with a quilt your mother stitched during long winter nights. It's not soft, but it's warm, and it smells faintly of cedar and milk. There's no nursery, no gentle lullabies, just the creak of the floorboards, the low moan of the wind, and your older siblings arguing over who gets the last spoonful of porridge. A stray cat, lean and grey, curls up near the hearth and watches you with eyes like green glass. That's your baby monitor, colonial style. Your family is a tangle of noise and necessity. Your father, broad-shouldered and quiet, spends his days splitting wood or mending fences. Your mother, with flour-dusted hands and a permanent frown, churns butter or spins wool into thread. You've got siblings, 2 brothers who already smell of sweat and pine pitch, a sister who's always sneaking bits of molasses, candy, and maybe a baby who didn't make it past the first frost. Your grandmother lives with you, her voice sharp as a whittling knife, telling stories of England or warning you about the devil in the woods. Your name is chosen with care, pulled from the Bible or an ancestor's grave: Abigail, Mercy, or John. If you're lucky, it means something like God's gift or steadfast, though to you, it's just what they call you when the chores need doing. You survive your first night, which is no small thing. Smallpox, dysentery, or a fever could snatch you before spring. The fire keeps you warm, the milk keeps you fed, and the fleas arrive right on schedule. By the end of your first week, the neighbors are already calling you the loud one or the scrawny one. Someone carves you a rattle from a piece of maple, but you don't shake it to gnaw on it. Practicing for a life where everything's a tool or a test. By the time you're 2, you're toddling through a world that's equal parts playground and proving ground. The village is a patchwork of log houses, fields, and a meeting house steeple piercing the sky like a needle. Your toys aren't toys. At Ola stick becomes a sword, a corncob, a doll, a scrap of leather, a sling for hurling. Stones at crows. Your playground is the muddy yard outside the cabin, shared with chickens, a surly goat, and the occasional pig that's more likely to bite than cuddle. Nothing's childproof. The axe by the woodpile is sharp, the hearth is hot, and the well is deep. You learn early, touch the wrong thing, and you'll regret it. Your first toy is a wooden spoon, blackened from stirring stew. You bang it against the floor, the table, your brother's shins. Your favorite game is Chase the Chicken, which ends in scratches and a scolding. Or maybe it's Steal the Apple, where you sneak into the cellar and come back with a bruised fruit and a smug grin. Games are rough and practical. Throw a rock, wrestle a sibling, or race to the stream and back. You once swallowed a cherry pit and spat it out to cheers from your cousins. Everything's a lesson. Share your bread, but only after you've taken a bite. Never touch your sister's hair ribbon, and always let the dog eat first, or it'll steal your supper. Education isn't a schoolhouse, yet those come later. For some, you learn by watching, doing, and dodging your mother's switch. Your mother teaches you to knead dough without burning your fingers. Your father shows you how to hold a hoe without blistering your palms. Your older brother, all elbows and bravado, tries to teach you to whittle, but you nick your thumb instead. By 4, you can fetch water, feed the hens, and spot when an adult's stretching the truth about how many chores are left. You're not quiet or meek, you're too busy dodging mud puddles and sneaking extra helpings of corn pudding. Your grandmother, squinting through the smoke, says you've got the look of someone who'll stir up trouble. You don't know what she means, but you like the sound of it. By 5, you're not just a child, you're a small cog in the family's survival machine. The new world doesn't coddle. Your first lesson is don't fall in the river. The second is don't touch the kettle when it's steaming. You fail both, of course, and learn the hard way. Wet clothes itch and burns, sting for days. There's no schoolroom, no books, unless you're one of the lucky ones in a wealthier family. Your classroom is the world, the field, the forest, the hearth. Your teachers are your parents, your neighbors, and the occasional traveling preacher who smells of tobacco and brimstone. Math is counting eggs or bushels of corn. If you miscount, you get a cuff on the ear and a lecture about waste. Reading, if you're taught at all, comes from a hornbooker, single-page tacked to a paddle, with the alphabet and a prayer scratched onto it. You trace the letters with a grubby finger, sounding out words like sin or grace. Your vocabulary grows fast. Chop, sow, reap, pray. Your mother shows you how to card wool without tangling it. Your father teaches you to spot a ripe apple by its blush. Your uncle, who's missing 2 fingers from a musket mishap, teaches you how to bait a fishhook. And your aunt, sharp-tongued and sharp-eyed, teaches you how to barter at the market without getting swindled. Adults don't baby talk, they speak plain, even when you only catch half the words. You learn quick or you're left behind, hauling water while your siblings smirk. Songs aren't for fun, they're hymns, sung in a meeting house that smells of wax and wet boots. You hum about salvation while scrubbing pots. Your lullaby is a psalm about walking through the valley of death, which is oddly comforting when the wolves howl at night. By 6, you can mend a sock, tie a knot, and tell when the sky's turning toward a storm. You're not being raised, you're being shaped like clay on a wheel. By people too tired to smile, but too stubborn to quit. Puberty hits like a sudden squall, messy, inconvenient, and full of feelings you can't name. You wake up one day taller, clumsier, and with a temper that flares like dry kindling. Your voice cracks if you're a boy, or stays steady but sharper if you're a girl. Your face turns oily, your clothes smell like a barn, and you're suddenly aware of every flaw in your reflection: a freckle, a scar, a tooth that's not quite straight. If you're a girl, your mother hands you a rag and says, "Deal with it." No explanations, just more chores. If you're a boy, your father hands you a heavier axe and expects you to swing it without whining. Your chores don't change, but they feel harder now. You still haul water, chop wood, and chase the goats who seem to hate you personally. But now you do it with aches in your back and a strange urge to argue with everyone. The adults call it growing pains. You call it unfair. Training steps up. If you're a boy, you're handed a musket heavy, cold, and prone to misfiring. You learn to aim at a tree, not because they care about your marksmanship, but because missing means no supper. If you're a girl, you're taught to spin finer, thread or stitch straighter seams, not for praise, but because a sloppy hem means doing it again. You spar with your siblings, wooden sticks at first, then maybe a dulled blade if your father trusts you not to lose a finger. You're told to move fast, hit hard, and never cry unless you're bleeding or baptized. You fight your brothers as an equal, and when you win, you're told to keep quiet about it. You brag to the chickens, instead they don't care, but they listen. Socially, things get strange. Some girls start braiding their hair with care, eyeing boys at church. You braid yours to keep it out of your face during chores. When a boy tries to charm you, you challenge him to a foot race. Most back off. A few race you and lose, which feels better than any compliment. Evenings are spent mending nets or polishing boots, eating porridge that's more water than grain. You try not to think about the future marriage, a farm, maybe a ship if you're a boy with dreams of the sea. You don't want a wedding or a fancy dress. You want to run through the woods, climb a tree, or maybe just eat an extra slice of cornbread without someone noticing. When you catch your reflection in a bucket of water, hair tangled, hands chapped, eyes bright, you don't see a child anymore. You see someone who's ready for whatever this hard land throws next. You turn 12, which in colonial years means you're half an adult, old enough to break your back or your heart. On your birthday, your father hands you something heavy, wrapped in a flour sack. You expect a new apron or a pair of worn-out boots. Instead, it's a tula hoe for a girl, a hunting knife for a boy. It's not a gift, it's a responsibility. You name it something practical, like digger, or sharp, because it's not a petty partner. Your first swing with it is clumsy. You hit the dirt too hard, or nick your thumb, and you don't cry, but you mutter under your breath. Your father watches, says, "That's how you learn," and walks off to mend a fence. The next few weeks are trial and error, mostly error. You practice on a patch of earth or a deer hide, missing the mark more than you hit it. Your hands blister, then harden. Your back aches, then strengthens. You learn to oil the handle, sharpen the blade, and swing without cursing when you miss. Sometimes you work alone, sometimes with a cousin who brags too much and swings too wild. One day, you get it righter. Clean row hoed, a hide scraped smooth. Your father grunts, which is as good as a parade in this world. That night you set your tool by your bed, not for show, but because it's yours. And you're starting to understand what that means. It starts with a challenge, as most things do. You're in the yard, minding your own business, when a neighbor's kid, taller, louder, and far too smug, looks at you and says, "Bet you can't carry 2 buckets without spilling." You don't answer with words. You grab the buckets, nod to your older brother, and start walking. The kid laughs, expecting you to falter. You don't. The water sloshes, but stays put. You set the buckets down, not a drop lost, and stare him down. He mumbles something like "good try" and slinks off, pride bruised worse than his shins. The adults notice. Your mother gives you a quick nod. Your father hands you an extra slice of bread at supper. In colonial life, that's high praise. The kid avoids you for a week, and when he finally meets your eyes, it's with the cautious look you'd give a dog that's bitten once. You learn something that day. Respect isn't given, it's earned, one heavy bucket at a time. At 14, you're sent on your first big errand, maybe to the next village to trade eggs for cloth, or to the woods to check traps. The path is rutted, the air smells of pine and frost, and your boots are already too tight. You carry a basket or a musket, and the weight feels like the world itself. The journey's not glamorous. Your feet ache, your shoulders burn, and a crow overhead seems to mock you. But there's something else, too. The thrill of being trusted. The quiet pride of knowing you're not just tagging along. You're needed. You reach the trading post, or find the trap, and it's a small victory. A bolt of cloth, a rabbit for the pot. You limp back home, blisters forming, but your heart's pounding with something new confidence. You're not just a child anymore. You're part of the colony, part of the machine that keeps it alive. Winter comes like a punishment. The fields freeze, the river ices over, and the days shrank to a few grey hours. Your chores, double chopping wood, hauling water, feeding the animals who glare at you like you're the reason it's cold. Food gets scarce, fresh meat's a memory. Now it's salted cod, cornmeal mush, and turnips that taste like regret. You bundle up in every scrap of wool you own, but your toes still go numb. Your shield, your only defense against the cold's a quilt, patched and heavy, but it's no match for the wind. Your family's always there, too close in the smoky cabin. Arguments flare over who ate the last apple or why the fire's too low. You escape to the yard, practicing with your knife or hoe, even if your fingers stick to the handle. Winter doesn't just test your body, tests your spirit. But you get stronger, quieter, tougher. When spring finally breaks, with the first green shoots and a bird's sharp call, you're ready. Not just for warmer days, but for whatever comes next. By 16, the village starts whispering about your future. If you're a girl, suitors approach with boys with gifts of dried fish or a carved spoon. You ask if they can outwork you in the fields. Most can't, and they don't. Come back. If you're a boy, the talk turns to trades, blacksmith, cooper, or maybe a sailor's life. You don't dream of marriage or a shop. You dream of running through the forest, free, with no one to answer to but the wind. Your aunt says it's time to settle down. You say you'll settle when the work's done, which it never is. One bold suitor challenges you to a wrestling match, thinking he'll win your hand. You pin him in the dirt and walk away, leaving him to nurse his ego. The whispers stop. You're not here to be tamed, you're here to carve your own path, one swing of the hoe at a time. You're not old yet, but you're not young either. Your hands are calloused, your back creaks, and you've got a scar from a fall that itches when it rains. You train less to prove yourself and more to stay sharp. You eat slower, sleep lighter, speak only when it matters. The younger children watch you now, wide-eyed, gripping their sticks to loose, dreaming of their own stories. You see yourself in them less polished, more hopeful. When they ask how to win a fight, you say, "Don't give up." When they ask how to earn respect, you say, "Work harder than they expect." When they ask if it ever stops being hard, you tell the truth. No, but you get better at carrying it. You're not a legend, not a hero. You're just a child of the colonies, forged by labor, shaped by the land, and ready for whatever comes next. And when you walk through the village, people step aside, not out of fear, but because they know you've earned it. Life in colonial America moves with the seasons, each one a chapter in a book you're learning to read by heart. Spring is a muddy promise, the air thick with the scent of wet earth and budding apple trees. You're out before dawn, your boots sinking into the thawed ground, helping your father plant corn or your mother sow flax. The seeds are small, hard, and precious, each one a bet against hunger. You learn to drop them just so 2 fingers, a quick flick, no waste. Your hands ache from gripping the hoe, but there's a quiet pride in seeing the rows stretch across the field. Straight as a hymn, summer brings heat that clings like a second skin. The sun beats down, turning your neck red and your tunic damp. You're sent to weed the garden, pulling crabgrass that fights back with roots like iron. The flies buzz, the chickens squawk, and your siblings bicker over who gets to rest in the shade first. You don't rest, you're too stubborn, or maybe just too scared of your mother's sharp tongue. By noon, you're hauling water from the stream, the bucket heavy enough to make your shoulders scream. But there's a reward, a swim in the creek, if you're quick and no one's watching. The water's cold, sharp, alive, and for a moment, you're not a colonist's child, you're just a kid, splashing until your fingers wrinkle. Fall is a race against frost. The air smells of apples and smoke, and the whole village hums with urgency. You're picking pumpkins, stacking hay, or helping slaughter a pig, your hands sticky with blood and your stomach turning at the smell. You learn to gut a fish, salt a ham, and peel apples without wasting a scrap. The harvest feast is the closest thing to a holiday tables grown under cornbread, venison, and cider, and for once, no one scolds you for taking seconds. You sit by the fire, your belly full, listening to the adults talk of trade routes and taxes. You don't understand it all, but you feel the weight of their words, heavy as the frost creeping in. Winter, though, is the true test. The world turns grey, the wind bites, and the cabin feels smaller every day. You wake to ice on the inside of the windows, your breath a fog in the air. Chores don't stop, wood must be chopped, the fire fed, the animals kept alive, the goats still holding their grudge, bleat louder than ever. Food dwindles to porridge and dried beans, and you dream of summer's berries. You huddle close to the hearth, mending socks or carving a spoon, while your grandmother spins tales of wolves and witches. Winter's not just cold, it's a teacher, showing you how to endure, how to wait, how to find warmth in a world that offers none. Each season shapes you, not with grand gestures, but with small, relentless lessons. You learn the rhythm of the land, the patience of planting, the gratitude of harvest, the grit of survival. And when you lie down at night, the wind howling outside, you know you're part of something bigger, cycle that turns whether you're ready or not. In colonial America, especially in New England, the meeting house is the heart of the village, and God is never far from anyone's mind. Sunday mornings are a ritual, as certain as the sun rising. You wake to the sound of your mother's voice, sharp as a bell, telling you to scrub your face and comb your hair. Your best clothes, linen shift for girls, breeches and a waistcoat. For boys are stiff, itchy, and never quite clean. You walk to the meeting house, the path worn smooth by years of boots, the air sharp with pine and the faint temps of salt from the sea. The meeting house is plain, no stained glass or golden altars, just wooden pews and whitewashed walls. The minister stands at a pulpit, his voice booming like thunder, preaching about sin, salvation, and the devil lurking in the forest. You sit still, or try to, your legs aching from the hard bench, your fingers twitching for something to do. The sermons are long 2 hours, sometimes 3 on. You're expected to listen, not daydream. You sneak glances at your siblings, who look as bored as you feel, or at the old man in the corner who's snoring loud enough to wake the dead. Children aren't spared the fire and brimstone. You're told you're born in sin, that God watches every step, and that idleness is the devil's playground. It's heavy stuff for a kid, but it's as much a part of your world as the plow or the spinning wheel. You memorize psalms, not because you love them, but because forgetting a verse means a lecture or worse. At home, your father reads from the Bible by candlelight, his voice steady but tired. You kneel for prayers, your knees sore against the floor, asking for protection from storms, sickness, and whatever's out there in the dark. But it's not all fear. The meeting house is where the village comes alive. Weddings, baptisms, even the occasional argument over land or livestock. You see the blacksmith's daughter in a new bonnet, the tailor's son showing off a carved whistle. After service, there's gossip by the door, a rare chance to laugh before the week's work begins again. And sometimes, when the minister's voice softens, talking of grace or mercy, you feel something stir a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, the world's not as harsh as it seems. The world outside your village isn't just fields and forests, it's a place of mystery, danger, and people who aren't like you. The Native Americans, whose names you hear in whispers, Wampanoag, Narragansett, Pequot-Live, in the shadows of the trees, their paths crossing yours in ways that feel both ordinary and strange. You're taught to fear them, stories of raids, and scalping circling the fire like ghosts. But you also see them at the trading post, bringing furs or corn, their faces unreadable, their voices soft and rhythmic. You're curious, but you know better than to stare. One day, you're sent to fetch water from the stream, and you see a native boy, about your age, fishing with a spear. He doesn't look like a threat, just a kid, like you, with mud on his feet and a focus that mirrors your own when you're setting a trap. You don't speak your languages, are worlds apart, but he nods, and you nod back, a silent agreement to share the stream. Later, you find a small, carved stone by the water's edge, shaped like a turtle. You don't know if it's a gift or forgotten, but you keep it tucked under your straw mattress, a secret you don't share. These encounters are rare but unforgettable. You hear your father talk of treaties and tensions, of land disputes and fragile peace. You don't understand the politics, but you feel the weight of it, like a storm brewing. Sometimes, a native woman comes to the village, trading baskets for cloth, and your mother speaks to her in halting words, both of them wary but polite. You watch, learning that survival means more than just planting corn. It means navigating a world where trust is as scarce as a good harvest. By 15, you're no longer a child, not really. You're a worker, a cog in the endless grind of colonial life. If you're a girl, your days are filled with spinning, sewing, cooking, and cleaning. You learn to churn butter until your arms burn, to bake bread that doesn't sink like a stone, to mend a shirt so the stitches are invisible. Your mother watches, correcting every mistake, her hands moving faster than yours ever will. If you're a boy, you're in the fields or the barn, ploughing, planting, or repairing tools. You learn to drive a team of oxen, to split rails for a fence, to clean a musket without blowing off your hand. Your father doesn't praise, he just nods when you get it right, which is enough. Work isn't just a task, it's your worth. A lazy child is a burden, and no one can afford that. You wake before dawn, the air cold and sharp, and don't stop until the stars are out. You carry water, feed pigs, mend nets, or haul firewood. The animals, those goats, still your sworn enemies, depend on you, and you depend on them. You learn to slaughter a chicken without flinching, to milk a cow without getting kicked, to spot a sick sheep before it infects the flock. Every task is a test, and every test makes you stronger, or at least more stubborn. But there's beauty in the rhythm, the clack of the loom, the thud of the axe, the soft cluck of hens settling for the night. It's a song, one you didn't choose but can't help humming. And when you sit by the fire, your hands raw and your body aching, there's a quiet satisfaction. You're not just surviving, you're building something, even if it's just another day. The wilderness is always there, just beyond the village, a vast, dark unknown that hums with danger. You grow up hearing stories of wolves that stalk the edges of the fields, of fevers that come with no warning, of native raids or French soldiers lurking in the north. Fear is a constant companion, not loud but steady, like the drip of a leaky roof. You're taught to pray against it, to lock the door at night, to keep a knife close when you wander too far. One night, you're woken by a sounder, low guttural howl that's not a dog or a fox. Your father grabs his musket, your mother lights a candle, and you all sit silent, listening to the dark. Nothing comes, but the fear lingers, settling into your bones. The next day, you find tracks near the barn, too big for a dog, too small for a bear. You don't tell anyone, but you carve a cross into the barn door, just in case. Sickness is another shadow. Smallpox swept through last year, leaving graves and scars. You've got a mark on your arm from the inoculation, a newfangled thing your parents didn't trust, but let the doctor try. Fevers come and go, and every cough is a warning. Your mother boils herbs, chamomile, something bitter you can't name, and makes you drink them, grimacing. You survive, not because you're lucky, but because you're tough, or maybe because the herbs actually work. At 16, you get your first taste of something bigger, trip to a bigger town, maybe Boston or Plymouth, to trade goods or visit kin. The journey's long, the cart rattling over roots and rocks, your backside sore before you're halfway there. But the town is a revelation, streets lined with shops, a harbor full of ships, people who don't know your name. You see a woman in a silk bonnet, a man with a silver watch, a sailor with a parrot that swears in Dutch. It's overwhelming, intoxicating, and you want more. You trade your family's eggs or wool for a few coins, maybe a ribbon or a knife-sharpening stone. You hear talk of war, of England, of taxes, of things you barely understand but feel important. On the way home, the world feels bigger, and so do you. You're not just a farmer's child anymore, you're someone who's seen a piece of the world and wants to see more. By 17, the village has plans for you. If you're a girl, they're talking marriage maybe to the blacksmith's son, who's kind but smells of soot, or the minister's nephew, who quotes scripture too often. You're not ready, and you say so, which earns you a lecture about duty. If you're a boy, they're pushing you toward a trade joiner, cooper, maybe a merchant's apprentice if you're lucky. You don't want a shop or a wife yet. You want to hunt, to sail, to carve your own path. You start to feel the weight of it, all the land, the family, the church, the endless work. You're not a child anymore, but you're not free either. You train harder, not to prove yourself, but to keep the restlessness at bay. You swing your axe with more force, run faster, pray louder, as if you can outrun the life they're planning. For you, at night, you lie awake, listening to the wind, wondering if there's more out there, beyond the fields and the meeting house. You're 18 now, your hands rough as tree bark, your eyes sharp as a hawk's. You've got from a fall, one from a burn, one from a fight you won't talk about. You're not old, but you're not young either. The younger children look at you the way you used to look at your older siblings, with awe, a little fear, and a lot of questions. They ask how to milk a cow without getting kicked, how to barter without getting cheated, how to pray without falling asleep. You give them simple answers. Grip firm, haggle hard, focus. You still work the fields, the loom, the barn, but you do it with a quiet confidence. You've survived winters, fevers, and the endless grind. You've faced the unknown and come back stronger. The village knows your name, not as a hero, but as someone who gets things done. When you walk past, people nod not out of fear, but respect. You're not just a child of the colony anymore. You're part of its bones, its breath, its stubborn heart. And when you sit by the fire, your axe or needle beside you, you realize something. You didn't just grow up. You were forged, like iron in a smithy, by a land that doesn't forgive, but doesn't forget either. You're not a legend, not yet, but you're a story, one that's still being written. One day, one chore, one season at a time. The colony isn't just your village anymore. By now, you've heard of other places, Virginia's tobacco fields, Pennsylvania's Quaker settlements, the Caribbean's sugar plantations. Maybe you've met a traveler, a merchant with a weathered hat who talks of cities where houses are brick, not wood, and streets are paved with cobblestones. Or maybe a sailor, his skin salty and scarred, tells tales of storms and distant shores. You listen, your heart stirring, wondering if you'll ever see those places. One day, you're sent to a market fair, a rare break from routine. The fair's a chaos of noise and color, vendors hawking cloth, spices, even a caged bird that sings like a flute. You trade a basket of eggs for a small mirror, the first you've ever owned. You catch your reflection, tanned, freckled, older than you feel, and wonder who you're becoming. You hear talk of rebellion, of taxes, of a world shifting under your feet. You don't understand it all, but you feel it, like a tide pulling you towards something bigger. You're 19, and childhood is a memory, distant as a dream. Your hands are steady now, your voice calm, your steps sure. You've learned to read the sky, the soil, the faces of those around you. You've survived storms, sickness, and the weight of a world that asks everything and gives little. You're not famous, not rich, but you're alive. And that's no small thing. The village still calls you by your childhood name, but they see you differently now. You're the one who can fix a fence in a storm, who can barter for a better price, who can pray with conviction. You train the younger ones, showing them how to hold a plow or thread a needle. You tell them it's hard, but they'll survive, just like you did. And when they ask if it gets easier, you smile, just a little, and say, no, but you get stronger. You don't know what's next: marriage, a trade, a journey across the sea. But you know you're ready. You've been shaped by the land, the work, the faith, the fear. You're not just a child of colonial America, you're a spark, a seed, a story that will outlast the winters and carry on, one quiet, stubborn step at a time. It's 1692, and the air in Salem feels heavier than usual, like a storm that won't break. You're 12, old enough to notice the adults' hushed voices, the way they glance over their shoulders when they speak of neighbors. The word which slithers through the village, quiet at first, then louder, like a snake. In the grass. You don't fully understand it. Witches are stories, like the devil in the woods or the ghost in the old Welbert. The fear is real, sharp as a blade. It starts with whispers. A girl in town, not much older than you, falls into fits, screaming and thrashing. Then another and another. They point fingers, name names, and soon the meeting house is a courtroom, packed with grim faces and trembling hands. You're not allowed near the trials, but you hear everything. Your sister, who's 14 and bold enough to eavesdrop, tells you about the accusations, Goodwife Proctor, Widow Osborne, even the minister's niece. They're said to dance with the devil, to curse crops, to sour milk with a glance. You know these women. Goodwife Proctor gave you a honey cake last harvest. Widow Osborne mended your cloak when it tore. They're not witches, they're neighbors, with chapped hands and tired eyes. But fear twists truth, and the village is a tinderbox. Home. The mood shifts. Your mother prays longer, her voice tight. Your father checks the musket by the door, though he won't say why. You're told to watch your words, to never joke about spirits or spells. You stop playing, chase the shadow with your cousins, afraid someone might think it's witchcraft. One night, you overhear your grandmother muttering about hysteria and foolish girls, but when you ask, she shushes you and hands you a broom to sweep the hearth. You sweep slowly, the bristles scratching the dirt floor, wondering if the devil's really out there or if people just need someone to blame for a bad harvest or a sick cow. The trials drag on and the village changes. Neighbors stop visiting. The blacksmith's wife won't meet your eyes at the market. You see a cart roll by, carrying a woman to the jail, her hands bound, her face blank. Your brother says they're hanging people now, up on Gallows Hill. You don't ask for details, you don't want them. By winter, the fever breaks, the accusations slow, the trials fade, and the village limps back to normal, or something like it. But the scars remain: a missing neighbor, a family gone quiet, a trust that's harder to come by. You learn something. Fear can be as dangerous as any wolf, and words can cut deeper than any blade. The land you call home isn't just yours, and by the time you're 13, you feel the tension of that truth. King Philip's War, they call it, though you don't know who Philip is or why he's fighting. You hear the adults talk of Metokamet, the Wampanoag leader, and raids that burn villages to ash. It's 1675 now, or maybe 1676, and the forest feels closer, darker, like it's watching. Your father comes home one day with a new musket, its barrel cold and heavy. He teaches you to load it: powder, ball, ramrod, steady hands, not because you'll fight, but because you might have to. The war isn't in your village, not yet, but it's close enough to taste. You hear of farms attacked, families gone in. The night, your uncle, who lives a day's ride away, sends word of a stockade built around his town, of men standing guard while women hide their children. You're sent to check the fences twice a day, looking for broken rails or strange tracks. You find nothing, but your heart pounds anyway. At night, the family prays for peace, for protection, for the strength to endure. You kneel by the fire, your knees sore, wondering if God hears or if he's too busy with the war. One morning, a group of Wampanoag traders comes to the village, their faces painted with ochre, their baskets full of furs. You expect trouble, but your father greets them, offering cornmeal and a cautious nod. They trade quietly, no smiles, no warmth, just business. You watch from the doorway, clutching a bucket, noticing how the native men move shore, silent, like they know the land better than you ever will. When they leave, your mother sighs, like she's been holding her breath. They're not the enemy, she says, but her voice wavers, and you're not sure who the enemy is anymore. The war ends, or so they say, but the land doesn't forget. You hear of whole tribes gone, villages empty, and settlers moving deeper into the forest, claiming what's left. Your village rebuilds, adds a watchtower, trains the men to march in step. You're too young to fight, but you're not too young to feel the cost: less food, more fear, a world that's harder to trust. You keep your turtle stone, the one from the stream, and rub it when you're nervous. It's not magic, but it's yours, a small piece of a world you're still trying to understand. Not every child in colonial America lives like you. Down south, in the Chesapeake, Virginia, Maryland, the world is hotter, wetter, and smells of tobacco and salt. If you were born there, your life would be different, shaped by a land of rivers and plantations, not rocky fields and meeting houses. Let's imagine you're a child in Virginia, 1680, on a tobacco farm by the James River. Your family isn't rich, but they're not poor either. Yeoman farmers, they call them, with a few acres and a few indentured servants. Your day starts with the sun, the air already heavy with humidity. You're out in the fields, not planting corn but tending tobacco plants, their leaves broad and sticky. You pinch off worms, pull weeds, and check for blight, your fingers stained green by noon. The work is in less tobaccos, a greedy crop, demanding every hour you've got. Your parents don't own slaves, not yet, but you see them on the big plantations, men and women from Africa, their voices low and unfamiliar. You don't know their stories, but you see their scars, and you learn not to ask. Your house isn't a log cabinet, a frame house, with a brick chimney and a dirt floor that's always damp. The mosquitoes are relentless, and you sleep under a net, slapping at the ones that get through. Foods, different too less, porridge, more fish, oysters, and corn cakes fried in pork fat. You eat fast, because there's always work waiting. Education's a luxury. You learn to count barrels of tobacco, to read a bill of sale, maybe a verse or two from a tattered Bible. There's no meeting house, just a church a half-day's ride away, and services are shorter. The sermon's less about sin and more about prosperity. These people's servants, slaves, are part of your world, but separate, like shadows cast by the same fire. You're too young to grasp the systems that bind them, but you feel their weight, a quiet unease that grows as you do. You learn to be kind where you can, a shared apple, a nod of thanks, but you also learn the rules. Don't ask too many questions. Don't cross lines you can't see. It's another lesson in survival. Not just yours, but theirs. By 17, the villagers. Whispers about your future grow louder, and courtship becomes a shadow you can't outrun. If you're a girl, suitors start circling, not with roses or poetry, but with practical offerings, smoked fish, a pair of leather gloves, a promise of a good farm. There's Samuel, the cooper's son, who's broad-shouldered and quiet, always mending barrels with a focus you admire. He walks you home from church one Sunday, his boots scuffing the dirt, and asks if you like to fish. You say yes, not because you do, but because you like his steady voice. You spend an afternoon by the stream, catching nothing but sharing a laugh when he slips on a rock. It's not love, not yet, but it's something comfortable, like a well-worn cloak. If you're a boy, you're expected to do the courting, and it's no easier. You notice Hannah, the weaver's daughter, whose hands are quick and whose smile is quicker. You carve her a wooden comb, spending hours getting the teeth just right, and leave it on her doorstep with a note scratched on birch bark. She thanks. You, at the next festival, her cheeks pink, and you feel taller than the meeting house steeple. But courtship isn't just gifts, it's a test. Her father grills you on your trade, your land, your faith. You stammer through, promising to learn carpentry or join a ship's crew. Anything to prove you're worthy. Courtship is slow, public, and practical. You don't steal kisses or sneak off alone, that's a scandal waiting to happen. Instead, you walk together after church, sit near each other at a barn raising, or share a bench at a wedding feast. The village watches, judging, approving, or clucking their tongues. Your mother advises you to choose someone hard-working. Your father says to pick someone who prays. You listen, but you're also learning what you want someone who doesn't. Flinch at a storm, who can laugh at a spilled bucket, who sees you as more than a plough or a loom. You're not ready to marry, not yet. You push back, saying you'll wed when the fields are planted or the roof's mended, excuses that buy you time. But the dance of courtship teaches you something. You're not just choosing a partner, you're choosing a life. One you'll build with your own hands, season by season. At 18, the question of your future sharpens. If you're a boy, the village expects you to choose a trade or have one chosen for you. Your father wants you to farm, like him, but the sea calls louder, or maybe the hammer of the blacksmith's forge. You're sent to apprentice with Goodman Wells, the carpenter, whose workshop smells of sawdust and resin. Your first day, you're tasked with planing a board, your hands clumsy, the wood splintering. Goodman Wells doesn't scold, he hands you a sharper plane and says, "Try again." You do, for weeks, until your boards are smooth and your shoulders ache with pride. If you're a girl, your trade is the household, but that's no less a craft. Your mother teaches you to manage a home budget, flour, cure meat, spin wool into thread that doesn't snap. You're sent to help Mistress Clark, the midwife, whose hands are steady even when a birth goes wrong. You carry her herbs, hold her bag, and learn to stay calm when blood flows. It's not a trade you chose, but it's one you're good at. And you start to see yourself as more than a farmer's daughter, keeper of life. A thread in the village's fabric. The work is grueling, but it's also a promise. A trade means independence, a chance to build something lasting. You practice late, sanding a chair leg or perfecting a stitch, not for praise, but for the quiet satisfaction of getting it right. You're not just learning a skill, you're learning who you are, what you can do, what you'll carry into the years ahead. You're 19 now, standing on the edge of adulthood. Your childhood a story told in calluses and scars. Your hands know the weight of a hoe, the pull of a needle, the kick of a musket. Your heart knows the ache of loss's sibling gone to fever, a friend lost to the sea. Your eyes know the beauty of a harvest moon, the flicker of a fire, the smile of someone who might be your future. You're not old, but you're not young, and the village sees you for what you've become, someone who works, prays, endures. You walk through Salem, your boots crunching on frost or mud, depending on the season. The meeting house steeple looms, the fields stretch wide, and the forest whispers of secrets you'll never fully know. You've survived winters that broke stronger souls, summers that burned, fears that gnawed at the edges of your faith. You've laughed at festivals, wept at graves, and carried buckets until your arms screamed. You've earned respect, not with words, but with deeds offense mended. A harvest saved, a promise kept. The younger children follow you now, asking for stories or tricks with a knife. You tell them to work hard, to listen to the wind, to pray, even when it feels empty. You don't tell them it gets easier, because it doesn't. You tell them they'll get stronger, because they will. You're not a hero, not a legend, just a child of the colonies, shaped by a land that demands everything, and gives back just enough. As you sit by the hearth, your tools beside you, the fire casting shadows on the wall, you feel it a quiet certainty. You're ready for what's next, whether it's a wedding, a trade, a journey beyond the horizon. You've been forged, not just by labor, but by love, faith, and the stubborn will to keep going. Your story isn't over, it's just beginning. One steady step, one quiet breath, one long, slow night at a time. And as you close your eyes, the wind's singing outside. You know this. You're not just a child of colonial America. You're a spark in its fire, a root in its soil, a voice in its endless, unfolding song. Sleep now, friend, and let the stars keep watch. Life's looser here, but no less hard. You play rougher games, wrestling, racing, or hunting frogs in the marsh. You've got more freedom to roam, but more danger too, snakes, fevers, the river that can pull you under if you're not careful. You hear talk of rebellion, of men like Bacon who fought the governor and burned Jamestown. It's over now, but the anger lingers, like smoke after a fire. You're a Chesapeake child, shaped by heat, tobacco, and a land that promises wealth, but delivers work. You wonder if you'll ever see the rocky hills of New England, or if this is all the world will ever be. Now picture yourself in Pennsylvania, 1700, in a village near Philadelphia, the Middle Colonies, Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, a patchwork, a mix of people and tongues you'd never hear in Salem. You're a Quaker's child, or maybe Dutch or German, living in a world where no one's quite the same. Your village is a jumble of stone houses, log cabins, and even a few brick buildings. The streets busy with carts and chatter. Your day starts with chores, but they're different here. Your family runs a small farm, but also a mill, or maybe a shop. You grind wheat, sort apples, or sweep the floor where your father sells cloth. The work's steady, but there's more time for learning. Quakers believe in schooling, so you sit in a one-room schoolhouse, scratching sums on a slate, reading from a primer that's half Bible, half poetry. Your teacher, a thin man with ink-stained fingers, raps your knuckles if you fidget, but he smiles when you get it right. The community's diverse English Quakers, Dutch traders, German farmers, even a few Scots-Irish who sing songs you don't understand. You learn a few words of Dutch, enough to barter for bread at the market. You see a Jewish merchant from New York, his hat different, his voice soft, and you're curious but too shy to ask questions. Religion's quieter, here no fire and brimstone sermons. Just meetings where people sit in silence until someone feels moved to speak. You squirm at first, but you learn to listen to the quiet, to find peace in it. Life's easier in some ways, more food, more trade, less fear of the forest. But it's not soft. You still haul water, chop wood, and dodge the occasional fistfight with a neighbor's kid. The city's close, and sometimes you walk to Philadelphia, staring at the ships and the crowds. You dream of being a merchant, or maybe a printer, but for now, you're just a kid, carrying flour, sacks, and learning to navigate a world that's bigger than you ever imagined. Back in Salem, you're 14 now, and your tools are your lifeline. Your hoe, nicknamed Digger, is worn smooth from years of use, its blade nicked but sharp. You've learned to swing it with precision, breaking soil without wasting energy. Your knife, sharp, is smaller, perfect for skinning a rabbit or carving a spoon. You keep it oiled, its edge keen, because a dull blade's worse than none. If you're a girl, you've got a needle, too, not a weapon, but just as vital. You stitch clothes, mend nets, even embroider a sampler with your initials, though you'd rather be whittling. You're taught to care for your tools like their family. Every evening, you clean them, wipe the hoe, hone the knife, oil the needle to keep it from rusting. Your father inspects them, grunting approval or pointing out a speck of dirt you missed. You learn to build, too, a chicken coop, a fence, a stool for the kitchen. Your hands blister, then callous, and you take pride in every nail you drive straight. You're not just working, you're crafting a life, one splinter at a time. Schooling's rare, but learning's not. Your real education comes from the land, the family, the church. You learn patience waiting for a seed to sprout. You learn courage facing a storm that could flood the fields. You learn love watching your mother rock a sick sibling, even when there's no medicine. And you learn loss when that sibling doesn't wake up. The grave, small and raw in the churchyard, your grandmother's your best teacher. Her story's a map of the world. She tells you of England, of ships crossing the sea, of winters so cold the Thames froze. She teaches you to read the wind, to smell rain before it falls, to know when a cow's about to calve. Your father teaches you strength, not just muscle, but the kind that keeps you working when you're bone-tied. Your mother teaches you resilience, showing you how to smile when the bread burns or the cow dies. And your siblings teach you loyalty, fighting with you 1 minute, defending you the next. You learn faith, too, though it's not always easy. You pray for rain, and it doesn't come. You pray for health, and fever strikes. But you keep praying, because it's what holds the family together, like the pegs in a chair. You're not book smart, but you're wise in ways that matter, knowing when to speak, when to listen, when to fight, and when to walk away. At 16, something shifts. You're sent on a journey, not just to the next village, but to a town. 3 days away, carrying a message or a bundle of goods. The road's rough, the night's cold, and you sleep under a cart, your knife close. You meet strangers, peddler with a crooked smile, a widow who offers you bread, a soldier who eyes your pack like he's sizing it up. You learn to read people, to trust your gut, to keep moving. When you return, you're different, not taller or stronger, but surer. You've seen a world beyond the village, and it's changed you. Your parents notice, though they don't say it. They give you harder tasks, bargaining at the market, fixing the roof, teaching your younger siblings to read. You're not a child anymore, not quite an adult, but something in between, a spark ready to catch fire. The colonial calendar isn't all work and prayer sometimes. The village pauses to celebrate, and those moments shine like candles in a dark room. You're 16 now, and the harvest festival is coming, a rare break from the grind of Salem life. The air smells of crushed apples and wood smoke, and the fields are golden with pumpkins and cornstalks. The whole village gathers in the common, tables dragged from every house, groaning under platters of roasted turkey, cornbread and cider so sharp it stings your tongue. You wear your best shift or waistcoat, patched but clean, and your mother lets you braid a ribbon into your hair or pin a brass button to your cap. The festival isn't fancy, no grand balls or silk gowns, but it's alive. The blacksmith plays a fiddle, its notes wobbly but warm, and the children dance, clumsy and giggling, until the adults join in. You're pulled into a reel, your boots stomping the grass flat, your hands clasped with a neighbor's kid who smells of hay and sweat. You laugh, a sound that feels foreign after months of chores, and for a moment the world is light. There are games, two-sack races, where you trip and land in the dirt, an apple bobbing, where you dunk your face in a barrel and come up dripping, an apple clamped in your teeth. The winner gets a sugar lump, rare as gold, and you savor it, until it's gone. The minister gives a blessing, his voice softer than usual, thanking God for the harvest and the strength to endure. You bow your head, but you're thinking of the cider and the dance, not salvation. As night falls, a bonfire crackles, sending sparks into the sky, and the elders tell stories of the first settlers, of storms survived, of miracles in the wilderness. You sit cross-legged, your back against a log, listening as the fire pops and the stars blink overhead. These festivals are fleeting, but they stitch the village together, reminding you that life isn't just survival, it's also moments of joy, shared and savored. Other festivals mark the year, each with its own flavor. Planting Day in spring brings a communal sowing, with prayers for rain and songs that feel older than the village itself. Training Day, when the militia drills, is half duty, half fair, with boys like you wielding muskets and girls selling pies. To the crowd, and Christmas, if your family observes it, is quiet, no trees or gifts, just a special sermon and a rare slice of molasses cake. These days are brief, but they're yours. A chance to be a kid again, if only for an afternoon. Your world isn't just your family and neighbors, there are others, living on the margins, whose lives brush against yours in ways you don't fully understand. Indentured servants are common in Salem, men and women who cross the sea for a promise of land, only to work for years to pay their passage. There's Tom, a lanky Englishman in his 20s, who works your uncle's fields. His hands are rougher than your father's, his eyes tired but sharp. He sleeps in the barn, eats last at supper, and speaks little. But you catch him whittling a bird from a scrap of wood, his fingers quick and sure. You ask him about England once, and he tells you of crowded streets and a sister he'll never see again. You don't ask again, but you leave him an extra corn cake when no one's looking. Slavery is rarer in New England than in the Chesapeake, but it's not unknown. In a wealthier neighbor's house, you see a woman named Patience, brought from Africa, her skin dark as the iron kettle she tends. She moves silently, cooking or cleaning, her eyes down but not empty. You're told she's property, like a cow or a plow, but that word sits wrong, like a stone in your shoe. Once, You drop a spoon near her, and she hands it back, her fingers brushing yours. She says nothing, but her glance lingers, and you feel a question you can't form. You don't speak to her again, children, don't talk to slaves, but you. Notice her, the way she hums a tune you don't know, low and steady, like a river running deep.